The galaxy had been quiet for too long. For centuries, the Vorin Empire ruled with an iron fist, its massive starships patrolling every corner of known space. They crushed any rebellion before it could even begin. But on Earth, something was changing. Deep beneath the city of Denver, Colorado, a secret meeting was taking place in a dimly lit chamber. The air was thick with tension, and the faces around the table showed a mix of fear and determination. Commander Ryan Carter sat at the head of the table. His sharp blue eyes scanned the room as he listened to the voices of those gathered. He was a man who had seen too many battles, but this one felt different. This wasn't just another fight. It was humanity's chance to break free from the Empire's grip. Beside him sat Lieutenant Elena Morales. She was quiet, but her mind was always working. Her fingers moved quickly over a tablet, pulling up maps and data that would guide their next move. "We can't wait any longer," Ryan said, his voice steady but firm. "If we don't act now, the Empire will only grow stronger. We have to hit them where it hurts." The others nodded, though some looked uneasy. They all knew the risks. Attacking the Vorin Empire was like poking a sleeping dragon. If they failed, the retaliation would be devastating. But if they succeeded, it could inspire others to rise up and join the fight. Elena leaned forward, placing a holographic projection of the Epsilon 7 outpost in the center of the table. It was a heavily fortified station located near the edge of Vorin-controlled space. "This is our target," she explained. "It's one of their key supply hubs. If we take it out, we'll cripple their operations in this sector." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The plan was risky, but it was also bold. Boldness was what humanity needed right now. Ryan stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow over the group. "We strike fast and hard," he said. "No hesitation, no retreat. This isn't just about survival. It's about sending a message. The Empire isn't invincible." As the meeting broke up, Ryan stayed behind with Elena. The weight of what they were about to do hung heavy in the air. "Do you think we're ready?" Elena asked softly. Her dark eyes searched his face for reassurance. Ryan hesitated. He wanted to say yes, but the truth was more complicated. "We have to be," he finally replied. "There's no other choice." Outside, the streets of Denver buzzed with life. People went about their days, unaware of the storm brewing beneath their feet. In a few short weeks, Earth's Armada would launch its first offensive against the Vorin Empire. It was a gamble, but it was also a spark of hope, a chance to reclaim freedom and remind the galaxy that humanity wasn't afraid to fight. Back in the chamber, Ryan stared at the hologram of Epsilon 7. The outpost looked small, almost insignificant compared to the vastness of space, but he knew better. This tiny station represented everything the Empire stood for. Control, oppression, fear. Taking it down wouldn't just weaken the Empire. It would prove that Earth was ready to stand up and fight back. For the first time in years, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. The Empire might be powerful, but it wasn't unbeatable. And soon, they would learn that the hard way. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around Saturn's rings, a silent witness to the gathering forces. Earth's Armada floated silently in formation, dozens of sleek warships waiting for the command to move. The ships were named with pride. *Liberty Dawn*, *Frontier Justice*, and *Eagle's Wrath*. Each vessel carried not just weapons, but the hopes of billions of people back on Earth. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship *Eagle's Wrath*, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. His sharp features were calm, but his mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. "Status report," Daniel said, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship. "All systems are green, sir," replied a young officer seated at the control panel. "Cloaking technology is active, and the fleet is ready to jump." Daniel nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the viewport. Beyond the glass, the icy rings of Saturn shimmered faintly in the sunlight. It was a breathtaking sight, But Daniel didn't have time to admire it. This mission wasn't about beauty, it was about survival. If they failed, Earth would fall under the Empire's boot forever. He turned to his crew, his expression serious. "Listen up," he began, raising his voice slightly so everyone could hear. "This isn't just another battle. This is our chance to show the Empire that we're not afraid. We fight for every man, woman, and child on Earth. For freedom. For the future." His words echoed through the bridge, stirring a mix of fear and determination among the crew. Below decks, Lieutenant Alina Morales worked tirelessly. She moved between consoles, double-checking communications and ensuring the cloaking systems were functioning perfectly. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her movements were quick but precise. She knew how important this mission was. If even one ship was detected before they reached Epsilon 7, the entire operation could fail. As the hours passed, the tension aboard the ships grew thicker. Soldiers checked their gear, pilots ran simulations, and engineers made last-minute adjustments. Everyone had a role to play, and no one wanted to be the weak link. In the mess hall, conversations were hushed, filled with nervous jokes and uneasy glances. Among the crew was Amanda Lewis, a young recruit who had joined the military just months earlier. She sat alone at a table, picking at her food. Her hands trembled slightly as she thought about what was coming. This would be her first real battle, and the weight of it pressed heavily on her shoulders. Finally, the order came. "Prepare for hyperspace jump," Daniel announced over the intercom. His voice was steady, but there was no hiding the tension beneath it. Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. Engines roared to life, and the ships began to glow with energy. One by one, they disappeared into the void, leaving Saturn's rings far behind. When they emerged near Epsilon 7, the scene was eerily quiet. The outpost loomed in the distance, its defenses bristling with weapons. For a moment, it seemed like they might have gone undetected. But then alarms blared from the Vorin ships stationed nearby. The enemy scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Earth's Armada struck first, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire that lit up the darkness. Explosions erupted across the outpost as shields collapsed and hulls cracked under the relentless assault. On the bridge of Eagle's Wrath Ryan Carter watched the chaos unfold. His jaw was clenched, and his knuckles were white as he gripped the railing. "Target their main generators," he ordered sharply. "We need to disable them before they can regroup." The crew responded instantly, redirecting firepower to the heart of the outpost. Despite the ferocity of the attack, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at him. This victory felt too easy. What if they were walking into a trap? Nearby, Alina monitored the situation closely, her fingers flying over the controls. She knew the cost of failure, and she wasn't about to let anything slip through the cracks. For now, though, the battle belonged to Earth. The Vorin forces were reeling, their once imposing presence shattered by the unexpected fury of humanity's strike. As debris drifted through space, Daniel allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. They had struck the first blow, and they had struck hard. But deep down, he knew the real fight was only beginning. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around Saturn's rings, a silent witness to the gathering forces. Earth's Armada floated silently in formation, dozens of sleek warships waiting for the command to move. The ships were named with pride. *Liberty Dawn*, *Frontier Justice*, and *Eagle's Wrath*. Each vessel carried not just weapons, but the hopes of billions of people back on Earth. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship *Eagle's Wrath*, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. His sharp features were calm, but his mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. "Status report," Daniel said, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship. "All systems are green, sir," replied a young officer seated at the control panel. "Cloaking technology is active, and the fleet is ready to jump." Daniel nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the viewport. Beyond the glass, the icy rings of Saturn shimmered faintly in the sunlight. It was a breathtaking sight, but Daniel didn't have time to admire it. This mission wasn't about beauty, it was about survival. If they failed, Earth would fall under the Empire's boot forever. He turned to his crew, his expression serious. "Listen up," he began, raising his voice slightly so everyone could hear. "This isn't just another battle. This is our chance to show the Empire that we're not afraid. We fight for every man, woman, and child on Earth. For freedom. For the future." His words echoed through the bridge, stirring a mix of fear and determination among the crew. Below decks, Lieutenant Alina Morales worked tirelessly. She moved between consoles, double-checking communications and ensuring the cloaking systems were functioning perfectly. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her movements were quick but precise. She knew how important this mission was. If even one ship was detected before they reached Epsilon 7, the entire operation could fail. As the hours passed, the tension aboard the ships grew thicker. Soldiers checked their gear, pilots ran simulations, and engineers made last-minute adjustments. Everyone had a role to play, and no one wanted to be the weak link. In the mess hall, conversations were hushed, filled with nervous jokes and uneasy glances. Among the crew was Amanda Lewis, a young recruit who had joined the military just months earlier. She sat alone at a table, picking at her food. Her hands trembled slightly as she thought about what was coming. This would be her first real battle, and the weight of it pressed heavily on her shoulders. Finally, the order came. "Prepare for hyperspace jump," Daniel announced over the intercom. His voice was steady, but there was no hiding the tension beneath it. Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. Engines roared to life, and the ships began to glow with energy. One by one, they disappeared into the void, leaving Saturn's rings far behind. When they emerged near Epsilon 7, the scene was eerily quiet. The outpost loomed in the distance, its defenses bristling with weapons. For a moment, it seemed like they might have gone undetected. But then alarms blared from the Vorin ships stationed nearby. The enemy scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Earth's Armada struck first, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire that lit up the darkness. Explosions erupted across the outpost as shields collapsed and hulls cracked under the relentless assault. On the bridge of Eagle's Wrath Ryan Carter watched the chaos unfold. His jaw was clenched, and his knuckles were white as he gripped the railing. "Target their main generators," he ordered sharply. "We need to disable them before they can regroup." The crew responded instantly, redirecting firepower to the heart of the outpost. Despite the ferocity of the attack, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at him. This victory felt too easy. What if they were walking into a trap? Nearby, Elena monitored the situation closely, her fingers flying over the controls. She knew the cost of failure, and she wasn't about to let anything slip through the cracks. For now, though, the battle belonged to Earth. The Vorin forces were reeling, their once imposing presence shattered by the unexpected fury of humanity's strike. As debris drifted through space, Daniel allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. They had struck the first blow, and they had struck hard. But deep down, he knew the real fight was only beginning. The aftermath of the battle at Epsilon 7 was a mix of triumph and sorrow. The outpost, once a symbol of the Vorin Empire's power, now floated in ruins, its shattered remains drifting silently through space. Earth's Armada had won, but the cost was heavy. Several ships from the fleet were damaged, some beyond repair. Casualty reports trickled in, and with each name read aloud, the weight of the victory grew heavier. On the bridge of Eagle's Wrath Commander Ryan Carter stared out at the debris field, his jaw tight. The fight had been brutal, and though they had succeeded, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Below decks, Lieutenant Alina Morales worked alongside medical teams to tend to the wounded. She moved quickly between stretchers, offering words of encouragement to those who could hear her. Her hands trembled slightly as she helped a young soldier, his face pale and streaked with sweat. "You're going to be okay," she said softly, though she wasn't sure if she believed it herself. The injuries were severe and supplies were running low. Every bandage and vial of medicine mattered now. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Cities erupted in celebration, their streets filled with cheering crowds. Fireworks lit up the night sky as people waved flags and sang songs of hope. For the first time in generations, humanity dared to believe that freedom was possible. But Ryan knew better than to trust the euphoria. He stood in the communications room aboard Eagle's Wrath *, listening to broadcasts from home. The voices were filled with joy, but they didn't understand the reality of what lay ahead. The Vorin Empire wouldn't let this humiliation stand unanswered. Late one night, Ryan found himself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The silence was almost unbearable, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. He leaned against the railing, his mind racing. What had they truly achieved? Yes, they had dealt a blow to the Empire, but at what cost? How many more lives would be lost before this war was over? Elena joined him after a while, her steps quiet on the metal floor. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "We did what we had to do," he replied. "But I can't stop thinking about what comes next. The Empire won't forgive this. They'll come back stronger, angrier. And when they do, we have to be ready." Elena nodded slowly, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars. "We've bought ourselves some time," she said. "That's something, at least." "It's not enough," Ryan muttered. He turned back to the viewport, his fists clenched tightly. "This victory is just a spark. If we don't keep pushing, it'll burn out before it can light a fire." The next morning, the fleet began the long journey back toward Earth. Repairs were underway, and the rescued prisoners were being cared for. Among them was a woman named Clara, who had spent 5 years in captivity. She sat in the mess hall, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the faces of her rescuers. "Thank you," she whispered to a passing soldier, "for everything." As the ships approached Earth's orbit, the planet came into view, a blue and green jewel hanging in the vastness of space. It was beautiful, but Ryan couldn't help feeling uneasy. The celebrations below were well-deserved, but they masked the truth. The Empire would return, and when it did, humanity would need to be stronger than ever. For now, though, they had won a battle, and sometimes that was enough to keep hope alive. True to Ryan's fears, the Vorin Empire didn't waste any time planning their retaliation. Just weeks after the victory at Epsilon 7, massive dreadnoughts descended upon Earth like a storm. Their arrival was sudden and overwhelming, catching humanity off guard. The Empire's ships formed a tight blockade around the planet, cutting off all communication with the outer colonies and trapping Earth in a suffocating grip. Orbital bombardments began almost immediately, raining destruction down on cities and military bases alike. In New York City, chaos erupted as the first wave of attacks hit. Skyscrapers crumbled under the force of plasma beams, sending plumes of smoke and ash into the air. Streets that had once been filled with life were now crowded with panicked civilians fleeing for safety. Underground bunkers became sanctuaries, but even there, fear lingered. People huddled together in dimly lit rooms, listening to the distant rumble of explosions above. Among them was Amanda Lewis, the young recruit who had fought bravely during the battle at Epsilon 7. She clenched her fists tightly, trying to push away the memories of losing her family in the initial assault. Above ground, soldiers scrambled to set up makeshift defenses. Armed with whatever weapons they could gather, they prepared to face an enemy far superior in numbers and technology. Amanda found herself thrust into combat when a group of Vorin ground troops breached the city's perimeter. Her heart pounded as she took cover behind a pile of rubble, clutching her rifle tightly. This wasn't training anymore. This was real. Every shot counted. Every move mattered. "Stay low," shouted a sergeant nearby, his voice barely audible over the roar of gunfire. Amanda obeyed, crawling forward to get a better angle on the advancing troops. Her hands trembled as she aimed, but she forced herself to focus. When she pulled the trigger, the recoil jolted through her arms, but she didn't hesitate. One by one, the enemy fell, giving the defenders a brief moment to regroup. Despite their bravery, the resistance was struggling. The Vorin forces were relentless, pushing deeper into the city with every passing hour. Amanda watched as buildings collapsed around her, burying both friend and foe beneath tons of debris. Her grief turned to anger, fueling her determination to keep fighting. She thought about her family, about everyone who had lost loved ones because of the Empire. If she gave up now, their sacrifices would mean nothing. Back in orbit, Captain Daniel Hayes monitored the situation from aboard *Eagle's Wrath*. His ship was stationed near Mars, too far away to provide immediate support. The sight of Earth burning filled him with rage and helplessness. "We have to do something," he said, pacing the bridge. "We can't just sit here while they destroy everything we've built." Lieutenant Elena Morales stood nearby, her expression grim. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," she reminded him. "If we rush in without a plan, we'll only make things worse." Daniel knew she was right, but it didn't ease the weight on his shoulders. He turned to his crew, his voice firm despite the turmoil inside him. "Start working on a strategy," he ordered. "We need to find a way to break that blockade. Humanity is counting on us." As the days dragged on, Earth's people clung to hope, no matter how faint. In the ruins of cities, ordinary citizens banded together, sharing food and shelter. Soldiers fought with everything they had, determined to hold the line. And in space, the remnants of Earth's Armada prepared for what would likely be their toughest battle yet. The Empire had struck back with terrifying speed, but humanity wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. For every life lost, another rose to take its place. The fight was far from over, and though the odds seemed impossible, the spirit of resistance burned brighter than ever. With Earth under siege, the remnants of humanity's Armada regrouped on Mars. Hidden within ancient lava tubes, they established a secret base far from the prying eyes of the Vorin Empire. The tunnels were dark and damp, but they provided safety, a place to plan their next move. Commander Ryan Carter and Captain Daniel Hayes worked tirelessly, poring over maps and schematics. They knew that breaking the Empire's blockade wouldn't be easy, but they also knew it was their only chance. "We can't fight them head-on," Ryan said, his voice low but firm. He pointed to a holographic display of the largest Vorin dreadnought hovering above Earth. "That ship is controlling the blockade. If we take it out, the rest will fall apart." Daniel nodded, though his expression was grim. "It's risky," he replied, "but if we pull it off, we might just have a shot at turning this around." The plan was simple yet daring. Infiltrate the dreadnought, disable its central AI core, and cripple the Empire's operations. It would require precision, courage, and a lot of luck. Lieutenant Elena Morales volunteered to lead the infiltration team. Her sharp mind and calm demeanor made her the perfect choice for such a dangerous mission. She didn't hesitate when Ryan asked if she was ready. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said firmly. Amanda Lewis also joined the team. Though she was still new to combat, her bravery during the defense of New York had earned her a spot. When Ryan approached her about the mission, she felt a mix of fear and pride. "You've proven yourself capable," he told her. "But this won't be easy. Are you sure you're up for it?" Amanda swallowed hard, but met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, sir," she replied. "I want to help end this." The infiltration team boarded stealth shuttles bound for the dreadnought. As they prepared to launch, Daniel addressed them one last time. "This isn't just about stopping the blockade," he said, his voice echoing through the hangar. "This is about showing the Empire that we're not afraid. That no matter what they throw at us, we'll keep fighting back. Remember why you're here. and come home safe. The shuttles launched silently into space, their cloaking technology masking their presence. Inside, the team sat in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Alina reviewed the plan one final time, double-checking every detail. Amanda gripped her rifle tightly, trying to steady her nerves. She glanced at the others, drawing strength from their determination. As they approached the dreadnought, the massive ship loomed ahead like a shadowy beast. Its surface bristled with weapons and defenses, a reminder of the danger they were walking into. The shuttles docked in a quiet section of the hull, and the team disembarked cautiously. The air inside the ship was cold and metallic, the hum of machinery filling the silence. Every step echoed loudly, making them feel exposed despite their efforts to stay hidden. Alina took the lead, guiding the team through labyrinthine corridors. Her eyes scanned every corner, searching for signs of enemy activity. So far, they hadn't encountered any resistance, but she knew it was only a matter of time. "Stay alert," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We're not alone here." Amanda followed close behind, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been inside a Vorin ship before, and the sheer size of it was overwhelming. The walls were lined with glowing panels, casting eerie shadows on the floor. Every now and then, automated drones passed by, forcing the team to press themselves against the walls to avoid detection. Despite the tension, there was a sense of purpose among them. They weren't just soldiers, they were humanity's last hope. Failure wasn't an option. As they moved deeper into the dreadnought, their resolve hardened. The Empire had struck fear into the hearts of billions, but tonight, a small group of humans was determined to strike back. And if they succeeded, the tide of the war might finally begin to turn. The infiltration of the Vorin dreadnought was a harrowing experience. Alina led the team through narrow corridors, her every step calculated and precise. The air inside the ship was cold, and the faint hum of machinery seemed to echo endlessly. Amanda followed closely behind, her rifle at the ready. Her breathing was shallow, each exhale a quiet mist in the freezing atmosphere. The tension was palpable. Every shadow felt like an enemy, every sound a potential threat. They reached a junction where two hallways met, and Alina held up a hand to signal the team to stop. She pulled out a small device and scanned the area for movement. "Clear," she whispered after a moment, motioning them forward. But as they turned the corner, alarms suddenly blared, piercing the silence. Red lights flashed along the walls, bathing the corridor in an ominous glow. "Move," Alina shouted, breaking into a sprint. The team followed, their boots pounding against the metal floor. Behind them, the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder. Vorin soldiers were giving chase. Amanda's heart raced as she glanced over her shoulder. The enemy was closing in fast. She raised her rifle and fired blindly behind her, hoping to slow them down. One soldier fell, but the others kept coming. "We need to find cover," Amanda yelled, spotting a doorway ahead. Alina nodded and darted toward it, slipping inside with the rest of the team. They found themselves in a storage room filled with crates and equipment. Alina quickly closed the door and locked it, though she knew it wouldn't hold for long. "This won't stop them," she said, already moving to the far side of the room. "There has to be another way out." Amanda spotted a ventilation shaft high on the wall. "Up there," she said, pointing. Without hesitation, she climbed onto a nearby crate and pushed open the grate. One by one, the team hoisted themselves into the narrow passage. The space was cramped and dark, but it offered a chance to escape. For what felt like hours, they crawled through the shaft, guided only by the faint light of Alina's wrist-mounted flashlight. The sound of pursuit faded, but none of them dared to relax. Finally, they reached a maintenance hatch that opened into a wide chamber. Below them stretched the dreadnought's central core, a massive structure pulsing with energy. This was their target. "We're here," Alina said softly, her voice tinged with both relief and urgency. "But we're not alone." Sure enough, guards patrolled the area around the core, their weapons at the ready. Taking them all out would be impossible without alerting the entire ship. We'll have to split up, Elena decided. Amanda, you create a distraction. Draw their attention away from the core. I'll handle the hacking. Amanda hesitated for a moment, fear gripping her chest. But then she nodded. Got it, she said, determination hardening her voice. She climbed down carefully, staying hidden until she reached a control panel on the far side of the room. With a deep breath, she triggered an emergency alarm, sending the guards rushing toward the false threat. While the guards were distracted, Elena worked quickly, connecting her device to the core's main terminal. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as she bypassed security protocols. Sweat dripped from her brow, but her hands remained steady. Almost there, she muttered under her breath. Suddenly, gunfire erupted nearby. Amanda had been spotted. She ducked behind a pillar, returning fire as best she could. Her shots hit their mark, taking down 2 soldiers before she ran for cover again. Pain shot through her arm as a stray bullet grazed her skin, but she bit back a cry and kept moving. Core shutdown initiated, Elena announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. A loud whirring sound filled the chamber as the AI system began to collapse. Lights flickered, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. We need to go, now, Elena shouted, grabbing her gear. She and Amanda regrouped near the exit, dodging falling debris as the dreadnought's systems failed. Explosions rocked the ship, forcing them to run faster than ever before. Reaching the docking bay, they leaped aboard their waiting shuttle, just as more explosions tore through the dreadnought. As the shuttle launched into space, Amanda looked back at the crumbling ship, a mix of exhaustion and triumph washing over her. They had done it. They had struck a devastating blow to the Empire. But even as the dreadnought burned behind them, Amanda knew the fight was far from over. As the dreadnought's systems collapsed, chaos spread throughout the Vorin blockade. Without the central AI core to coordinate their efforts, the Empire's ships began to drift aimlessly. Orders went unanswered, and communication lines fell silent. On Earth, the effects were immediate. The orbital bombardments ceased, leaving cities in ruins but alive with hope. Civilians emerged from underground bunkers, blinking in the sunlight as they realized the nightmare was over for now. Captain Daniel Hayes watched from the bridge of Eagle's Wrath as the blockade disintegrated. His hands gripped the railing tightly, his knuckles white with tension. It worked, he said quietly, almost unable to believe it himself. Around him, the crew erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the ship. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of relief, a fleeting moment of victory amidst the war. The surviving Vorin ships scrambled to regroup, but without leadership, their movements were uncoordinated. Some fled into deep space, while others remained in orbit, unsure of what to do next. Ryan Carter seized the opportunity. "This is our chance," he told Daniel, his voice firm. "Hit them hard before they can recover." Earth's Armada launched a counterattack, targeting the scattered enemy vessels one by one. Plasma cannons roared to life, tearing through weakened shields and hulls. The once mighty Vorin fleet crumbled under the relentless assault. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending debris spiraling into the void. Humanity had turned the tables, and they weren't about to let up. On the ground, Amanda Lewis stood among the ruins of New York City, watching as the skies cleared. Her injured arm was bandaged, but she barely noticed the pain. What mattered was that the bombardments had stopped. People around her cheered, hugging each other and crying tears of joy. Amanda felt a surge of pride, not just for herself, but for everyone who had fought so hard to make this moment possible. She thought about Elena, still out there somewhere, risking everything to bring humanity closer to freedom. Back aboard Eagle's Wrath Daniel promoted Amanda to lieutenant during a brief ceremony in the mess hall. The room was crowded with soldiers, their faces tired but smiling. "You've shown incredible bravery," Daniel said, pinning the new insignia to her uniform. "Your actions have inspired us all." Amanda accepted the honor humbly, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Thank you, sir," she replied softly. But I didn't do it alone. We all played a part. Her words resonated deeply with those present. This wasn't just one person's victory. It belonged to everyone who had sacrificed, fought, and endured. The road ahead would still be difficult, but for the first time in years, humanity dared to dream of a future free from oppression. Meanwhile, Alina returned to the fleet, her face pale but resolute. She had completed the mission, but the cost weighed heavily on her mind. Too many lives had been lost, too much destruction left in their wake. As she stepped onto the bridge of Eagle's Wrath Ryan approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did good," he said simply. "We couldn't have done it without you." Alina nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "It's not over," she reminded him. "The Empire will come back. And when they do, we need to be stronger than ever." Ryan didn't argue. He knew she was right. The Vorin Empire wouldn't let this humiliation stand unanswered. But for now, humanity had won a crucial battle. Ships returned to Earth's orbit, carrying supplies and reinforcements. Cities began the long process of rebuilding, their streets slowly coming back to life. The scars of war ran deep, but so did the resilience of the human spirit. As the sun rose over a battered but hopeful planet, Ryan stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humanity had proven something important. They were capable of standing up to tyranny, even against overwhelming odds. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time in generations, the future felt within reach. And that was enough to keep fighting for.